Hello and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television International. Today being the 19th of October 2023, your morning program where we keep you updated with things and happenings from Nigeria, from the papers. I am Sanela Shadasham and I'll be doing the program together with Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning,
Rachel.
Sally.
Morning. We're live on Facebook and in YouTube. You can do well to join us live there. Drop your comment or your contribution on any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And we will go straight into the papers, starting with this day newspaper.
On this day newspaper, FIRS issues 2-week ultimatum to remittance of VAT. WHT embarks on compliance evaluation. Atiku asks Supreme Court to jettison technicality, overrule Tinubu on fresh evidence. You can find details on page 41. Lagos government warns residents of Lekki, Aja, orders of imminent flooding, advises them to relocate. You can find details on page 49. Protests rock Middle East as Biden visits and clears Israel. There are writers under the story where we can see Arab leaders call off sitting with U.S. president, and then you can find more details on page 46. The big story on the paper: Naira weakens to 1,100 Naira on parallel market as dollar demand rises. Demand being driven as import bills rise on 43 unbanned items. INE rate is 883 Naira as arbitrage gap widens to 216 Naira to a dollar. Sales for 1,130 Naira via transfers. You can start with the details on the front page and find more on page 48. And then we have a picture story: groundbreaking ceremony of Lagos Film City project, where we can see the Lagos governor. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
And on Blueprint newspaper, discuss record 95.21% market remittance in the second quarter of 2023. Israel-Gaza war divides UN Security Council. You can find more of the story on page 7. Borno integrated 6,900 conspirated insurgents, says General Ashik. You can find more of the story on page 13. We will rebuild Nigerians' fate in our country, coming from Malagi. And the big story: EFCC chair at the Senate. Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion naira to contract procurement fraud in 2 years, with the writer vows to prosecute any Nigerian irrespective of status. Urges nation's criminal justice system to work above technicalities. Seek preventive measures, collective decision to end corruption. Other stories on the paper we have: we recorded over 1,000 pre-election litigation on 2023 polls coming from INEC. Tax political parties on internal democracy. Withdraw 7 certificate of return, persuade to court others. More of the story can be found in the paper. BDC seek urgent reform as Naira depreciate to 1,065 Naira to a dollar. Inflation will peak next 3 months, says Rwani. So Nigerians are to brace off. It's of course a lot of things will increase. So you can read more detail of what we can do as Nigerians on page 21. 300 level Uni Ilori student commits suicide over indebtedness. You can find more detail, and this is as a result of the debt the student collected from this online banks, and they are on his neck. You can do well to find more detail of that story on page 7. We have 2 picture stories on the front page of the paper. You can do well to grab the blueprint and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, Lagos government to Lekki, Aja, Alobole, Marian and Kara, other communities relocate immediately, flood is coming. 40 traders feared killed in Yobe auto accident. The Alafin stool, EFCC squeezes oil kingmakers. You can find more details on page 25. NNPCL appoints Femi Soneyi as spokesman. INEC records 1,000 pre-election litigation on 2023 poll. You can find details on page 28. NGF seeks declaration of state of emergency on education. The big story on Nigerian Tribune: reject technicality, overrule Tinubu on fresh evidence, Atiku tells the Supreme Court. And concerning loan apps, 300 level Unilorin, female student commits suicide over indebtedness. You can find more details on page 18. ADC's Abejide appeals to Milaye, Ibrahimo commends Kogi West elders. Suspected herdsmen kill 9 in Benue attack. China to refinance Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri Railway for completion. You can find more details on page 15. And on impeachment, Ondo lawmakers want Deputy Governor to withdraw suit against Assembly, give fresh condition. You can find more details on page 23. CBN's policy on 43 items will collapse many industries. Man tells federal government. You can find details of their statement on page 6. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Rachel, when I saw what the Northern Governors Forum are saying, seeking a declaration of state of emergency on education, and just yesterday we saw when Senate is telling the federal government to also declare emergency on drug abuse, and here we're seeing another emergency. So it seems as if almost every sector in Nigeria needs to be declared emergency because we need to attend to quite a lot of things in the country, and I think it's quite worrisome, especially for the northern governors, looking at the fact that the northern part have been affected, especially in regard to insecurity, and a lot of students are no longer in the school. Take you if you can take the statistics of states like Yobe, Zamfara, Kebbi, Borno, and the likes of it. So it's quite sad, and I hope that will not just, or the government will not just leave the northern governors to face the problem, but rather will see help coming from the federal government to make sure that all that is needed for the students to get back to school will be provided for them. We saw a time where the number of classes, where number of teachers, and then all that is needed to make sure that all of the students are back in the classroom. So we hope that as they are seeking a declaration of state of emergency on education, the Minister of Education knows what he needs to do, and also to work in collaborative with other NGOs to see that let us have the students back in school. Especially we're going to look at the primary and secondary school level. That is where it's really crucial that we have students back in school. So we hope that this will be taken very importantly, this will be taken seriously, so that we'll have students back in school studying again.
State of emergency just sounds like a really nice English for a lot of people saying that and wanting it. And then I'm just looking at a government that have not been able to declare state of emergency on insecurity, one we should have been, but we haven't seen such drastic move from them. They keep going slow and steady, as if security shouldn't be treated like the menace it is, and the many lives that have been lost. But I don't think Nigerian government is going to declare state of emergency on anything like education. So far so good. What we are waiting for them is just to see them sticking to their promise that we've seen, where the Minister of Education is coming to tell us we will see a 25% increase in the budget of education. We want to see that. And if the government is able to do that, trust me, within a period of a year, we will be able to see an improvement and a change in the education system. And then it won't only stop for 2024 budget, we will carry it to 2025 budget. And as long as this money allocation is prioritized properly, with or without state of emergency, we will see education becoming better, and every other sector that need attendance, that the government have decided to give it the necessary attention it needs, with little resources, we will be able to see some amount of growth. So yes, it's good that we have people, organizations taxing the federal government themselves, talking about states of emergency. It means they see the urgency or the importance of paying attention to a certain sector. But I want to see them doing the work. So it's easy for you to just say it, and that have been the thing with politicians in Nigeria and leaders. It's easy to make the promises to say we will do this, to bring out the agenda and all of that, but then when it comes to implementation, this is where we see a large gap, and over the years they haven't done much concerning that. So we just hope to see more of the work than all of the fine English and promises for Nigerians.
Less talking, more walking.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the leadership newspaper, where we have Senate confirms Olukoyede as the EFCC chairman. You can find more of that on page 6. And on Israel-Gaza war further divides UN Security Council. And what's trending on the paper, Senate confirms Olukoyede as the EFCC chairman. And then we are having Rolls-Royce to lay off 2,500 employees. You can find more of that on page 2. Governors back state of emergency in education sector with detail found on page 7. And 10 years after, GenCos discuss freight over license renewal amid uncertainty. With the rider, federal government begins review in few days. Stakeholders fault entire privatization process with more found on page 4. NMPCL appoint Olufemi as the Chief Communication Officer. You can find on page 73. And on fresh evidence, Atiku asks Supreme Court to overrule Tinubu with more found on page 71. 20 dead, 40 injured in Yobe auto crash. You can draw to find what led to that auto crash and how it can be avoided further. China to complete Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri rail project with detail found on page 7. We have a picture story here where we can see the General Secretary, Nigeria Supreme Council, and also we are having FCT Minister Nyesom Wike during the courtesy visit by the Abuja National Mosque Management Board to the FCT administration in Abuja yesterday. And that's all of the leadership newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, politicians leverage Electoral Act loopholes to evade scrutiny. You can find details on page 6. China commits to refinancing completion of Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri railways. Digital innovation, rising foreign exchange cost, others leave book publishing hamstrung. You can start with the details and continue on page 4. Worries as Naira slumps further to 1,100 Naira to a dollar in unofficial market. U.S. vetoes UN resolution on ceasefire as Middle East allies snub Biden. You can find details on page 6. 7 million customers unmetered as power generation drops to 4,387 megawatts. Electricity woes persist as Nigerians pay 686.18 billion naira for darkness. And dependence on foreign aid, Fayemi tells African leaders. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Punch, where we have China to fund Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, Abuja, Kano rails with detail on page 33. Anti-craft war should start from the National Assembly. This is coming from the EFCC chairman himself. Akpabio meets Tinubu, dismisses the crisis in Senate. The big story on contributory pension. NLC retirees lament as 26 states fail to join the scheme. The rider following that say Lagos, 5 others in full compliance. Contributory pension scheme inevitable, says Pencom. Withholding pension immoral, says NLC. Retirement now death sentence retirees kick. And Rachel, this will take us back to what happened in Osun State, where we had about 20 retirees actually, being walked out because of how exhausted they were. We saw that about 2 slumped down, even though there was no any death recorded whatsoever. But then you and I were talking about the fact that must it get to that point before we know that we need to pay attention to people who are talking about those who have retired? And here we are seeing that even the PENCOM is saying that it's not even their fault. Some of the governors have refused to be part of the contributory pension. That is to say that your employer is supposed to contribute 10% and you as the employee is supposed to contribute about 8%. And here we are having that just Lagos and 5 others are fully compliant with all of that, and then we're having some states that are still on the bidding stage. Some have not even started the scheme whatsoever. And I think it is important, if we really want our retirees to retire well, then it is imperative that we have governors registering under the scheme, because it's for the well-being of the civil servant, not for the governors. Here we heard a lot of people saying, we hardly hear governors saying they are retired, even though they are being paid pension, why they are still serving the country, because it's either you're a one-time governor, now a senator, or one is senate president. So it is imperative that we see that governors should please try and endeavor to comply, be part of the PENCOM, so that we know that when retirees actually retire, they'll be able to have something to go home with. Why? Because the scheme is smooth. But when we have, some rough edges, we see that retirees end up suffering from all of this negligence coming from the governor. So we hope that for states that are yet to comply, they should try as much as possible to finish whatever process that is needed so that retirees can actually enjoy whenever they are retired.
I believe states have no reason whatsoever not to comply. But I believe in a situation where we have states that are struggling with paying of salaries for those who are still actively working, well, it won't be surprising if we find them defaulting in being part of the contributory pension. However, I want to keep saying that these are one of the things that need to be passed into policies, bills, laws, regulations, and all of that. It's just like how we keep talking about the local government autonomy, how it's being left for like state governors to choose whether they want to be a part of it. This is one thing that is also and shouldn't be a thing whether the state should want to be a part of it or not, regardless of your financial strength as a state. If it becomes mandatory, if it becomes a policy, if it becomes a law in the country that you have to give that percentage, then I think the pardon might just be in the percentage you give. Not that you are completely not contributing to pension. It might just be in the percentage that you contribute, and then you will continue to owe as a regard of that, because it is expected for you to give, because whether we like it or not, in as much as there are people in active service that need their pays, we have retirees also that need their pay. Is not negotiable in any way. It's not one of those things you will sit down and say they can relax, they can know. It's not one of those cases. It's not a which is better kind of situation. It's doing all of them together because it is very, very important. So I just hope, that's why I keep saying there's so much work that needs to be done, Sally, regarding our system, regarding a review, regarding of how our structure is. And I hope that the government is really, really ready to restructure Nigeria. If not, we'll keep seeing these loopholes and they will keep going big till they get to the extent that it's almost like nothing can be done about it. But I believe we are not there yet. And as long as we have an administration that is working towards us not getting there, we will definitely see some significant growth.
Governors and all
Yes.
states, especially the 26 states that are not yet part of this scheme, should try as much as possible, because right now it looks like retirement is a death sentence. Once you are retired, you don't have any means of getting anything anymore. So we hope that we hear governors signing into it. Still on the Punch newspaper, we have Gaza hospital attack spark protests. Biden, Israel blame terror group, where we have the picture story where we can see Biden, and also we are seeing Egypt and Yemen. That is to say, that is the country that are actually protesting the issue of the blast that took place in the hospital. And then on extortion, police remove DPO, try others after Punch reports. You can find more of that on page 5. You remember we took that story, Rachel, about extortion coming from police. And here we are seeing that the police have removed the DPO and are trying others after that report coming from the Punch newspaper. EFCC squeeze Oyo keymakers over bribery allegation. You can find detail of that story on page 7. Ondo Assembly asks Oyeditewa to withdraw suit. You can find more of that on page 24. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, anti-graft war. ICPC recovers jewelry, clothing, others worth 450 billion naira, 104.696 billion naira cash. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 3. War-torn Ukraine ships 25,000 tons of humanitarian grains to Nigeria. You can find more details on page 8. Atiku asks Supreme Court to reject technicality, overrule Tinubu on fresh evidence. No fund to set up 14 new universities approved by Buhari, says the federal government. NNPCL appoints seasoned journalist Soneyi as spokesman. Judge throws out charge against Senator Uba and Capital Oil. You can find details on page 7 and 31. The big story on the paper, Pandef wants federal government to legalize fund artisanal refining. Wonders why government allows solid mineral mining in North, forbid pork fire in Niger Delta. You can find more details on page 4. I can investigate Senate President. A statement coming from Olukoyede says Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion naira from 2018 to 2020 to contract procurement fraud. You can find more details on page 3 and 29 and sell it. This has been on the papers like since starting the week, and I'm wondering, how is the federal government of Nigeria being vulnerable to fraud? I as a common man might be vulnerable to fraud because I lack certain resources to do my digging and to know for sure. But how is the government of Nigeria losing over 2.9 trillion naira to contract fraud and procurement? It shows that this is just a proof that anytime we say someone is sleeping on their job, someone is actually sleeping on their job, because a common person should be a victim of certain things and be like, okay, I didn't know, I didn't dig deep, I didn't know much. But why would the federal government of Nigeria fall into certain things that shouldn't even be heard of in the first place? Because you have all the resources it takes to do your investigation. You know these companies, you know who and who you are giving these contracts to, you sign them. They are under the law. You are doing this contract, of course, with other law enforcement agencies, because we are talking about trillions and trillions of naira. We are not talking about petty change. We are talking about revenue allocated, revenue generated in the country, allocated. And the worst case seller is the fact that we are running on deficit. So we are looking at borrowed money that's supposed to have been used for something else, and we are seeing that we are having a government losing trillions of nairas to fraud and procurement, contract fraud and procurement fraud. And this is a sad one for me on a lot of levels, because I feel by whatsoever means, Nigerian government should not be a victim of fraud, because you have the resources to do your job. It feels like foul play in a lot of places, because it means someone at the position to do their homework did not do it, to do the following up did not do it, the appropriate contract perhaps was not given, the law enforcement agencies that were supposed to be informed about this contract to keep an eye on the contractors, the deadlines and everything that was put in place was not followed duly, and this is why we are seeing such. So I just hope that we stop sleeping on our jobs in this country, and let's stop losing money as if we are not supposed to account for it, as if it was being thrown at us, as if we are not running on deficit, because it's really a sad one seeing that we're looking at 2.9 trillion and we are having a deficit of over 9 trillion naira. So let's imagine we lost 2 trillion out of that deficit to fraud. It shouldn't be heard of, and I believe it shows laxity on a lot of level.
Rachel, while you were talking, I couldn't help but keep wondering of all the projects over the years the government have given out, and then they didn't follow in detail to know all of this.
Yes.
There was a time in Makurdi precisely when a contract was being given, and it will surprise you to know that, Rachel, it was talking about road construction, and then the road started from one point that ended at another, and then the rest was just red clay, or let's say sand, or however that was poured there.
Yes.
And now that contractor or whoever was giving that project would snap just that side that was actually worked on and then send it. And then we don't even have people investigating to go and know that money that we gave for this particular contract, was that contract completed? The materials that were used to actually make that road, did they use it well? No one that we're saying, he's saying that he is going to inspect every road construction being given, and no one that we're saying that we're going for concrete this time around. We're not going for the usual material we use of making a road. That is just for road. There was a time in the history of Nigeria, Richard, where somebody was given the money, talking about the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're seeing the Ministry of Agriculture busy creating recreational activities. Now, Richard, you want to ask, what does agriculture have to do with recreation activities?
Yeah.
So these are part of just one out of the many things that money for contracts are being given, and then somebody somewhere siphoned it. Of course, Rachel, you are saying we spend money. It's not their personal money. So what do you expect? A lot of people sometimes feel that this is a national cake. Let me get my share, and whoever come, whatever is left, you try to get your share as well. So we are looking forward to where we are saying we are cutting the cost of governance. No wonder we are having the EFCC chairman said, starting from the Senate president, he is going to investigate everybody.
We're looking forward.
And I hope that he is going to keep to his word, just like we say, what is cheap For you to talk is easy, but
It's
for you to
easy.
work is one thing.
Yeah.
We are hoping. Till date, we do not know what is the issue of the former EFCC chairman, Bauer. We're talking about our former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele.
Yes.
These are all people that at one point or the other were supposed to uphold the statutes of Nigeria. But at the point, they failed Nigerians. Something is under your case. Either you pretend that you didn't see what is happening, or money was being used to shut your mouth. So we are hoping that we'll have a system right now, leaders that are transparent. And I'm hoping that the EFCC knows that he has a lot of job. The ICPs, I hope the chairman know that he has a lot of job. Of course, we saw in the paper a lot of people are saying that they are coming from the same zone. But personally, if you ask me, it's not about the zone, even in as much as I believe that everybody should be represented. But if we are going to have these people working it out, I believe that people who felt that they are not being part of it will support them in doing out this job. So we are hoping that he will investigate them. I mean, Sarah have said they should give us, for former governor, they should give us how much they have been collecting. So we are hoping that, as the EFCC chairman say, he's going to investigate. Nigerians will follow him, and they will make sure that he keeps his own side of the bargain. So we hope to see, when the money is being given to you, follow up, do your background check before you sign any document. Do investigation. That is another thing, Rachel, because we keep signing and then you don't even know what that agreement, terms and conditions are all about. Some of these contractors are not even Nigerians. So I just hope that right now we have learned our lesson the hard way, because 2-point-something trillion naira is a huge sum of amount of money, Rachel. So I hope that right now we've learned our lesson and that we'll do the right thing henceforth.
We just hope so. Still on New Telegraph newspaper on insecurity, Army recovers artillery launchers in Anambra, says it's intensifying operations nationwide. You can find details on page 3 and 29. We have PWC oil deregulation reducing Nigeria's purchasing power. You can find more details on page 2 and 28. Concern as Nigeria's student rate rises above global estimate. Nigeria's suicide rate rises above global estimate. Psychiatrists blame socio-economic issues. You can find more details on page 14. Ashiri replaces Umahi as Senate Deputy Leader. And the downside of the paper, we have FDA molds banning hair straightening products over health risks. You can find more details on page 31, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Richard, I'm also concerned about the number of suicide rate. I mean, this is the second time I've seen psychologists talking about the fact that what people are going through can be linked to the socio-economic situation in the country. And of course, we're seeing this female student that actually committed suicide. And a lot of people have fallen victim to this loan sharks app where you collect loan, and then before you realize the messages are sent to all your loved ones, and then you get very sad and then eventually you commit suicide. So I think the Senate should also push. Maybe we need to join drug abuse and Senate together and suicide together, so we can, what really is the cause. Because believe you me, Rachel, times are going to get harder. But then how can Nigerians cope? Because you and I have said Nigeria just have a way of making light of everything that is happening to them. But believe you me, somebody might be smiling, but you do not know what he or she is going through. So I do not know if this has made it to the paper. The second time psychologists are drawing the attention of the government, that is to say the government needs to do something about it. So we hope to see what will be the steps that the federal government will be willing to take, work together with other NGOs that are willing to do the work together, and then we'll see that to some extent, maybe just like the Senate was planning on maybe adding drug abuse education, like a curriculum of maybe primary and secondary school, because this is happening, that is starting from primary school. Then I think we should also have a course on regarding on maybe managing of your emotions and all of this, and how to manage, maybe just maybe, I'm just speculating, something that maybe can be introduced to actually help Nigerians to cope with all of the socio-economic crises that are happening, and then how we can live above it and not let it swallow us eventually.
You know, Stella, when it comes to socio-economic problems, to be honest, a lot of Nigerians know money, but we are not financially literate. we don't have enough financial literacy, and that is one fact. We know that the cost of price of food have gone high in the market. We know that rent is high. We know that nobody is finding it easy. But when it comes to financial literacy, we're lacking it. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the fact that we have an economy that whatsoever doesn't support financial growth at the level it should be, and a lot of people are struggling regardless of how hard they try. But I believe that there is a need of a lot of financial empowerment, not as in giving money, but making people understand how money works, and how you should be able to fix it into your finances to be able to avoid some of this problem. And I'm not trying to say that people that go and get loans are not going to get it for legit reasons, but a lot of times when you look at some of these loans that people went for, it was not a priority that could have been invested in a way that they wouldn't be having these people holding them on their neck. We have a wrong borrowing mentality. We have a very wrong debt mentality when it comes to lending money and all of that. Average Nigerians, and an average Nigeria can borrow money to buy clothes. Yes, an average Nigerian can borrow money to go and make hair. An average Nigerian can borrow money to rent a house above their pay grade. Exactly. An average Nigerian, just as you said, can borrow money just to have fun, just to be able to get Ashebi for this wedding, just to be able to show up at an event. We do this kind of habit. Now, it doesn't rule out the fact that there are people who go and get loans for hospital bill, for real life threatening things. At the same time, we still have people who go and borrow money for the wrong reason. And if we're able to get some financial education, and yes, be literate to some level, we might see this go low a little bit, very, very little. But no matter how little it is, I believe is significant. Exactly, Sele. We are taking steps to the right direction. So I just hope that something is being done. Just as you said, our curriculum needs to keep changing. Our curriculum is very outdated, Sele. When we want to talk about education, there are a lot of things that need to be put back into the education system, and I wonder what is taking them long to do that. I just hope that it's not just about talking state of emergency. Do the work, Sele. And I'm praying and hoping that our government are truly ready to do the work.
I think you and I have been talking a lot.
Yes.
So at this moment, we'll just take a break, take our breath, let you chew the stories, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines and hear what your own contribution is concerning all of the stories that are on the paper. Please stay tuned with us. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on your winning station. We've been looking at quite a number of stories on the paper, where we are also seeing where Atiku is starting the court to discharge the former, talking about the evidence he brought in, and then you put in the new evidence. I'm still talking about the Chicago School University, whether he forged the result or not. We have quite a number of stories on the paper where EFCC chairman is also saying he's going to start the investigation from the top. So we hope that he keeps to his own part of the bargain by following what he said with the work. Our number is on the screen at this moment. Do well to call us. We would love to hear what your own contribution is. Please try and be civil. Summarize your point in a minute so other callers can also get to call in and air their view. I still have Rachel Tenzer with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, before the calls come in, let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper. YPP to drag Ifeanyi Ubah to court over defection to the APC with the rider, as the federal government withdraws case against Senator Capital Oil 4 days after joining ruling party, with detail found on page 7. Atiku tender CSU certificate, asks the Supreme Court to sack Tinubu. Governors Forum backs state of emergency in education. You can find more on page 6. Federal government subsidized electricity with 135.23 billion naira in 3 months. Federal government subsidized electricity with 135.23 billion naira in 3 months. Tinubu changes information ministry to ensure Nigerians believe in country. We will encourage responsible journalism, not gag press. This is coming from Idris. You can find detail on page 8. Gunmen killed 2 policemen, 5 others in Benue and Zamfara State. Biden Arab Leaders Summit cancelled as 470 die in Gaza hospital blast. Well, we hope for those who died. We send our condolences to them. You can find more detail of that story on page 7. Revocation order, Wiki extend deadline for churches. You can find more of that on page 7. Babachir hit president again, accuses him of Islamizing the APC. Sanwo-Olu begin construction of $100 million Lagos Film City. You can find on page 7. Senate confirms Olukoyade Halima to head the EFCC and NSIPA, with detail found on page 9. Here we have the president of China with our vice president during the meeting on the sideline of the Third Belt and Road Initiative Forum in Beijing yesterday. And that's all on the
On the Nation newspaper, EFCC quizzes oil kingsmaker over a laughing twist in race for stool. Senate not boiling, says Akpabio we disagree to agree.
Yeah, good morning.
Why it's hard for African nations to restructure debt by still glitz. You can find details on page 7. Federal government cautions on abuse of social media. You can find details on page 3. Only 6 out of 14 new federal varsities to take off, says minister. ICPC recovers 655 billion naira cash assets in 4 years. I think we have a caller online.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Saleh and Rachel. How are you?
Good
Fine,
morning,
thank you,
we're
sir.
fine.
Yes, Shaman calling from Kaduna.
All right, please go ahead. Mr.
Yes,
Shah.
we have beautiful paper presentation all the time from our
Thank you
leaders
very much.
about infrastructure. The trillions of naira that the former government spent on what infrastructure and other infrastructural development in the country. My sisters, let us say the truth to ourselves. Are we seeing it on board? We only hear good representation. We only hear good presentation and representation because the ministers will always say they are representing this country, not knowing that they are representing their very self and their immediate families and their allies. So is that how we continue in this country? Can you imagine the trillions of naira being borrowed? And Nigerians are recovering millions and trillions of naira from our force, the people that doesn't like the growth of this country, that will embezzle and embezzle until they embezzle no more. They embezzle money they cannot even finish in their own life. And these monies are being recovered by Nigerians. But yet we are borrowing money for infrastructure. And this infrastructure, my sisters, will bear it witness that we are not seeing it happening. Is that how we continue in this country? We are begging our father, President Tinubu, to wake up. We don't want what play out in Buhari's time to continue in his time. Even though Buhari said he was leaving a working document for the government that would take over from him. So I don't know if really he's working on that working document. But if truly he's working on that working document, then Nigeria, we are really, really in soup. Let our leaders wake up so that all that we are passing through will be averted. We need leadership in this country. We need transparent and prudent leadership that will make the citizens feel the impact of what is happening in this country. Enough of our suffering. Look at the killings, the insecurity still in so many parts of the nation. In Southern Kaduna, my sister, you cannot sleep with your two eyes closed. In Kaduna here where we live, I'm telling you, Sabotation area, Marabari goes down. You cannot sleep. Every day you come back from work, you have to go out in the night and support your area. And we have security that will go to election polls in hundreds of thousands to just watch on election and collect whatever they can collect there. But the life of people is nothing to them. God will hold our leaders responsible on the resolution day. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shaman. Thank you very much.
Insight and contribution in all the stories. Thank you so much.
Still on the Nation newspaper, more Chinese funding for rail, power and other projects. We have the president of China pledges support at Pali Wishetima. Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri rail lines restored. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4. And at the downside of the paper, we have Tinubu Buhari greet former head of state Gowon at 89. You can find more details on page 32, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
Wood star Storm Efe as Sanwo-Olu kick off construction of $100 million Lagos Film City project. We detail found on page 6, and I'm happy that Lagos State is taking the initiative. Hello, good morning.
As far as I'm concerned,
Hello, good morning. Please turn down the
I
volume
am worried
of the TV
as a
set.
citizen. Nigerian leaders
Yes, sir, go
are
ahead.
under the control of some powerful interests, local and foreign. I want to ask, what is the reason, the economic reason, for unbanning the 43 items? What is the good reason for removal of fuel subsidy that Nigerians are now underpaying? What is the reason for floating the naira that a dollar now goes for 1,100 naira? I know that the judiciary as well as the assembly are not under the full control of the executive. So we don't know how any solution coming from either of the two agencies. My solution is this. I want to ask first and foremost, where is Nigerian Labour Congress? The civil society. Nobody seems to be talking now. I want them to do what Ghana is currently doing. Nigerians and civil societies, labor unions, should come out on the street and go and occupy the National Assembly, occupy the judiciaries, occupy all the government houses, because nobody is listening and nothing is to be done. If labor strike from today to tomorrow, nothing will be done. We are borrowing more money when we cannot pay the interest fully. All our earnings now go to establishing interest. So all the money borrowed, when are we going to pay it? And the government told us when they started that they are not going to borrow anymore. But 2 days ago, they have arranged to borrow $1.5 billion from the IMF. They also borrowing about 800 million from African Development Bank. And more is to be borrowed. This morning now you said that they are also negotiating with China to come up to handle more railway. So the question is, the one Buhari did, what is the economic impact on the whole nation? Am I riding on here now? What are we doing as Nigerians? Nobody will help us except to help ourselves. So all I'm advising is that until all of us cannot eat anymore and stand lying on the street, is that when we will come out and say we are no more interested in this leadership? I'm begging every Nigerian, throw away your party affiliation, throw away your religion, throw away your tribe. I wrote an article recently which I titled, Nigerians are now united by hunger and hardship. That is the truth. Yoruba man is shouting, Igbo is shouting, Hausa is shouting, the minorities are shouting. So when will we come out and do something good for this country? Nigeria, save yourself. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Richard. Good morning.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning. So many questions we hope the Nigerian government can answer and act upon what Nigerians are expecting from them.
Well, we're still on Nigerian News Direct, where we've seen that Governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, kick off the construction of the $100 million Lagos Fame City project. We're seeing that we're beginning to know how much we can earn from the entertainment industry. It's not just about sport, but also on Nollywood. Still on Nigerian News Direct, we have federal government subsidized electricity with 135.23 billion naira in the second quarter. Hello, good morning.
Amount that we borrow and used to borrow Nigerian money, we say they will not borrow again to Nigeria.
Hello, are you still there?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Rachel?
Yes, we
Please
can
go
hear you.
ahead.
Hello, can I hear you?
Yes, we can.
Okay, is there a level of money Nigeria we borrow and the people that use the bank that used to borrow here we say you have borrowed enough and we cannot borrow you again. Because I'm surprised. This government will come, they will borrow. This government will come, they will borrow. And the people borrowing Nigeria, are they not will it be a time they will say if you have borrowed enough, we cannot borrow you again. Or there's no limit you can borrow.
Okay. Well, I like that question, Stella. If there's an amount Nigerians can borrow that the other people will tell them, no, stop borrowing. If you've been following, you see that the Debt Management Office have said how trillions of naira go into debt servicing, and that means the profit or the interest. So these people borrowing to us not only are getting back their money, but they're making tons of interest on the money. So if I was the loan shark here, and I have a lot of money, I'm not going to stop borrowing you because I know I am making profit by borrowing you money. So as long as you want to keep collecting, I'm going to keep giving you as long as you're going to remit. And this is what is happening to Nigeria, that there are countries that have this much money to keep giving, and world power is all about your economic size. And these countries, whether we like it or not, are under Nigerians are like under them, that we are indebted to them on a lot of level, and they won't stop giving to us because not only are they going to get back their money for sure, but they are also profiting based on interest, and no wonder we will see the Debt Management Office complaining concerning debt financing. So as long as there are countries there with enough money, there's nobody that will tell you you've asked too much of money. They will keep feeding your borrowing.
This question is coming.
It's not the first time, yes.
We hope that we'll wisen up about all of
We hope
this.
so.
Still on Nigerian News Direct, we are seeing Nigeria loses 2.9 trillion naira to contract fraud in 2 years, with details found inside the paper, with the writer says as the new EFCC chairman vows to spend more preventing corruption than fighting it. RMAFC recovers 500 billion naira unremitted revenue, more detailed on page 3. NNPCL appoint Soyeye as the Chief Corporate Communication Officer, with detail on page 2. NAFDAC approved vaccine for cancer immunization. Naira plunges to record low of 1,100 naira to $1 on black market. And on subsidy palliative, Ogun extend payment of 10,000 naira transport allowance for civil servants by 10 months. This is really commendable and applaudable coming from the Ogun government. And that's all on the Nigerian News Direct.
On first news, starting with the big story, amid fresh evidence against Tinubu, Atiku begs Supreme Court, alleges forgery, says it's a grave constitutional issue, urges Apex to jettison technicality and grant his application. Tinubu meets AFCC chairman behind closed door hours after Senate confirmation. Anti-corruption crusade, don't use me as example, Akpabio tells AFCC chair. Senator Abo makes U-turn, says Akpabio not behind his sack, and apologizes. And on palliative, Abiodun extends 10,000 naira transport allowance payment to civil servants. Police commence trial of officers who fired shots at Ladipo Market. Asset recovery, court strikes out autumn deputy sued against Benue government, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On the direct independent newspaper, we have APC now Islamic Party, ex-SGF Babachir Lawan Blast Tinubu and others. Federal government planning to make Nigerians have faith in country coming from the minister. Still on Daily Independent, we have the Chicago Varsity Certificate saga. Atiku asked Supreme Court to reject technicality at meet fresh evidence. Sanwo-Olu kick off construction of $100 million Lagos Film City project, says it will create jobs and grow economy and attract investment. Intel shows Israel not responsible for Gaza hospital blast, says the White House. That's talking about Biden, with detail found on page 7. Tinubu OK6 varsity established under Buhari to kick off. Abo makes U-turn, says Akpabio not behind his sack from the Senate. We will remember Elisha Abo said the Senate president, and then he was also listing the names of those that will be sacked, but then he made a U-turn and apologized, saying the Senate president said he is not behind that. We have NCOS sacked 2 personnel, sanctioned 35 others, with details found on page 6. Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion naira from 2018 to 2020 to contract fraud coming from the EFCC boss. No crisis in Senate, Akpabio insists after visiting Tinubu. You can find on page 6. And here we're having a picture story showing the president with the new people he have appointed as the EFCC and other key positions. You can find more detail inside the paper, and that's all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, Messi to earn $20.4 million annual compensation at MLS. PSG, Chelsea, Bayern want Magnan. You can find details on page 5. Barcelona president charged with bribery. You can find details at the back page. Neymar injured as Brazil loses to Uruguay. Messi scores brace. We have I'm not at Haaland's level for now, a statement coming from Hojlund. And we have Tonali faces 3-year ban. Nice suspense Atal over social media post. Kane breaks Sir Bobby Charlton's record. We have Fagioli recounts struggle of gambling addiction. Real Madrid plots Musiala Davis double swoop. We have Chukwueze returns to Milan with injury. Hamuso returns to Spain squad after Kissgate scandal. You can find more details at the back page. And Juventus striking Zielinski as Pogba's replacement. You can find details inside the paper. Tyson Fury warned to be very careful of Francis Ngannou. You can find details at the back page. The big story on Sporting Sun says doctor rules Osimhen out for 30 days. You can find more details on page 6, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Alright, let's round it up with the Business Day newspaper. Enzo $23 million plan to save dollars and save lives, with detail found on the front page and on page 30. Manufacturers paying worsen on impasse with foreign supplies. We have bullish 2024 budget faces execution risks on revenue forecast. Petrol shortage to cease as marketers get fresh supply. We're happy about that. And also we have a bridge synergy host stakeholders on the SDG financing today. Federal government partners ACF to the 6. And that's all on Business Day newspaper, and also how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you so much, Rachel, for always being there with me. Thank you to all our callers who called this morning to actually contribute very greatly to the program. We are truly grateful. Thank you to the crew members, our supporters, and everyone who have been watching Echo Television. Until again we come your way, to have a blessed day ahead.